Hello everybody, welcome back to the Young Fan Podcast. It's that time of the week again. It's time we break down, preview and predict all of the action from this upcoming weekend in Sky Bet League One. I'm certainly excited for it. I'm sure you are as well. In the comments down below, are you excited for it? And also, give me your predictions for just your side or maybe all of the games across this Saturday. Very exciting times. Match week number 2, of course, we're heading into as well. Some massive games of football as once again, some huge sides go head-to-head in what is going to be a competitive weekend. Right, let's get straight into it. Remember, leave a like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell as well. We're on an absolute roll at the moment when it comes to subscribers. So please make sure you show your support by hitting that red button. It's free and completely easy. And that bell as well. It will just give you a little notification when I upload or go live or anything like that. And you can just click on it straight away. It'll come a little notification to your phone or whatever. And you can just go straight to the video, straight to the live stream. It's easy as that. So starting off then with Barnsley again. Cheltenham. Michael Duff did not really start to life as Barnsley manager in League One with the best of result, losing away from home against Plymouth, but he'll now take his side out against his old club at home in the second game of the season. But before we look at Michael Duff and Barnsley, let's have a little look at both of these sides coming into this match. As I've already said, Michael Duff did lose his first game as Barnsley manager on the road to Plymouth last Saturday. He lost 1-0. As for his old side, they were defeated by Peterborough home 3-2. They're actually 2-0 up in that game. At half-time, they were leading by 2-0. So I'm going to be really interested, actually, how these sides bounce back, because they're both going to want to bounce back, whether they can do or not. I mean, there's either going to be one winner, or, of course, it could end as a draw. I'm not predicting a draw. We'll come on to my prediction in just a second. But what I can say is, this early in the season, losing your first game of the campaign, how do sides bounce back? Because I mean, some would argue it's not an easy and not the worst. It's not the worst situation because, again, it's very early on in the season. But what I would say is losing the first game, that's not really the sort of momentum you want to start really kick-starting whatsoever. And how will both managers? What will the message be? Now, we know that, of course, Cheltenham lost games with Michael Duff last year and they were very easily able to bounce back. So what will Michael Duff do as Barnsley manager, and what will the new Cheltenham manager be able to do as well? So looking at the odds, very interesting actually. Barnsley are 4-5. The expected chance of winning is 56%. Barnsley actually win 57% of the time with those specific odds. As for Cheltenham, they're 4-1. The expected chance of winning is 20%. So it is Barnsley being favourites. You can see why. Newly relegated side. Yes, they were defeated last Saturday, but there's no doubt that squad is full of talent and full of quality, and they do still have that ambition, of course, to want to get straight back into the Championship. It won't be easy, like I keep saying, but they have got that quality and it can't really be doubted. As for Cheltenham, actually only win 1% of the time when their odds are 4-1. So to be honest, Cheltenham, they have got their backs against the wall. Losing the first game of the season, like I said, how will they bounce back? It's going to be quite interesting. But both sides on 0 points, the bottom end of that table, what is going to happen? I'm certainly by it. Let me know, of course, your prediction in the comments down below. I'm going to go with a Barnsley win, a home win. We know home advantage is massive. I'm going to go with a 2-0 win to Barnsley in this. As always, let me know in the comments down below. What are you predicting for Barnsley against Cheltenham? Right, let's have a little look here. The facts from League One already. 31 goals here, 42% home wins. So once again, I mean, to be fair, 42% draws actually. But the teams that did end with a win, they were at home, the large percentage of them. So that's going to be really interesting. We knew that last season it was a very big sort of landslide towards home advantage. Once again, already, but just one game into this season, it seems as though it is a little bit of the same. Right, let's go to Pompey next. Fratton Park, the first game at Fratton Park of this season as they host Lincoln City. I mean, to be honest, both sides, once again, had the same result in the opening game of the season, both drawing. I mean, Pompey versus Sheffield Wednesday was an absolute corker of a game that was. 4-0 written all over it. Tom, absolute legend. He, of course, vlogged the game. He does that with Pompey. I seem to be shouting him out in every single episode we're doing at the moment, but he deserves it. He's a brilliant YouTuber and somebody that's absolutely smashing it in the Pompey and League One world. Just watching his vlog, he absolutely... I think he expressed through that video how much of a corker of a game that was. 3-3, a red card. It absolutely had it all. 6-goal thriller opening game of the season. I made the prediction when we did it last Thursday, in fact. God, it's been a week. Only a week. I said how it's going to be quite tight opening game of the season. Not many sides want to make too much of a mistake. Well, I got that awfully wrong because 3-3, opening game of the campaign, is absolutely incredible. As for Lincoln, wasn't quite a thriller. 1-1 against newly promoted Exeter at home. Of course, They're going to be on the road this Saturday. Lincoln fans, I spoke to a few of them. First half, they weren't too pleased. It looked as though it was two relegations either going head-to-head. Actually conceded in the first half. They were 1-0 down. And I think as though Lincoln was almost slipping into the frustrations of last year. Of course, new manager now, Mark Kennedy in charge. It was going to be quite, I guess, intriguing to see a new manager sort of come into the dugout and how he's going to express himself through his side. It looked as though in the first half was a little bit same old. Second half, they did, of course, rescue that point. Was it the best performance from Lincoln? Definitely not, but a draw is better than a defeat. But Exeter as well, you would say it's a pretty good point for them on the road. First game of the season, newly promoted side. A lot of people, like I said, including myself, actually thought they were going to get relegated. So, and they still might. I'm not saying a draw at home to Lincoln on the first game of the season is all you need for safety. But what I am saying is that's not a bad point whatsoever. As for the odds, Pompey are 3-4. Unfortunately, we don't have the Lincoln odds, but they do have, they are 3-4 with a 57% chance of winning. Of course, that does mean that, quick math here, it will be Lincoln that aren't favourites. So, I mean, I was expecting that, again, not just because Pompey at home, but also what they did show, I think, in that first game against Sheffield Wednesday. They're a really good side going forward. Defensively, conceding 3 goals won't be ideal, but Colby Bishop in his first game looked really quite lively. I look at some of the other players as well. I look at like Marlon Pack in that midfield. He already looked really quite comfortable in their experienced head, but also somebody with real talent. They got really, really good with the fullbacks. Ogilvy had a really good game in that one as well, scored the header. So I look at Pompey's side now. I do think they are really knocking on the door of that top 6. I said it, I know this isn't a prediction video in the sense of the entire league, but what I would say is they look in a really, really good shape. I think Colby Bishop is that number 9. Him and I think Piggott up front really are sort of hoping to sort of create a connection really between the two of them, and already I think Piggott got the assist for Colby's goal. I'm intrigued. I really, really am. I'm going to go with a Pompey win. I'm going to go with Portsmouth beating Lincoln by 3-0. A comfortable Portsmouth win. I'm sorry, Lincoln City fans. I just feel as though Pompey, they've got this one in the bag fairly comfortably, I'd say. I'm going to go with 3-0. I could get that horribly wrong. I do think Pompey will win. Maybe not 3-0, but I'm going to go a little ballsy, I think I'd say. Right, let's go to the next one. Exeter against Port Vale. Two sides, of course, who got promoted into League One this year. 2 very successful League 2 campaigns last time around. And you can see, looking at the opening games of the season, we're getting a little bit more positive. We started with 2 sides who've lost their first game. Then we went to 2 sides that drew their first game. We're now going to 2 sides that drew and won their first game. So we're slowly creeping into the sides that did very well in the opening game of the season. Lincoln against Exeter. We just spoke about it. I'd say a really good point for Exeter. Port Vale against Fleetwood. I was one that thought Fleetwood were going to be able to get past Port Vale. I predicted Port Vale to get relegated. I'm not changing my stance on that. I know a few Port Vale fans would be giving me a little bit of stick in the comments. I'm sorry, I'm not sort of moving away from that. I just don't think you've got the squad good enough to stay in the league. You might prove me wrong. If you do, then fair enough, go for it. But I just feel as though at this point, assessing your squad, assessing the situation, looking at the other sides, that's how you'll calculate a prediction. I just don't think you have enough to stay in the league. But like I said, I could get it completely wrong. I look at the first game of the season, and I don't want to sort of create a sort of toxic atmosphere between me and Port Vale fans. I have nothing against your football club. What I will say is that's a really, really good result against Fleetwood. And so if there is any sort of bad feelings between the two of us, I hope we can squash it here and now, because that's a really, really good opening day result. I thought Fleetwood were, like I said, going to have enough to defeat Port Vale, even though they were away from home. They weren't able to, and they got defeated by Vale 2-1. Brilliant start for Port Vale, newly promoted side winning on the opening game of the season, a home game as well. I would say, and looking back now, I've made a mistake once again. Opening game of the season, newly promoted side at home, that atmosphere will be absolutely rocking. Whether they got 30,000 people in the ground or just, I don't know how many people Port Vale had, let's say 5,000, 5,000, maybe 6,000, I could get it completely wrong. Either, whatever it doesn't really matter, to be fair. It doesn't. I'm not just specifically pointing at Port Vale, I'm looking at the entirety of this division. Newly promoted side, first game of the season at home. It's always difficult, isn't it? It's always difficult. It's going to be a really quite tough one for Fleetwood Town. But either way, I did think that they would have enough to get through it. They didn't, and Port Vale did very, very well. Looking at the odds, 7-5 for Exeter, so that's 42%. That team actually wins 23% of their matches with those odds. As for Port Vale, 21-10, the expected chance of winning is 32%. This team actually wins 42% of the time with that odd. So, I mean, to be fair, Exeter are favourites on the face value, but with specific odds, Port Vale do better. So, I'm intrigued by it. I'm going to go with a draw. I am going to go with a draw. 2 sides, of course, I think we'll probably feel they are 2 sides probably knocking around that sort of bottom half of the table, maybe in that relegation battle. That's where I sort of see them going head to head. So I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. 1-1 draw between Exeter and Port Vale. Could get it wrong, as I always probably will do with these predictions. I'm not going to say that every single time because I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I will get most of these wrong, but I am going to go with 1-1. I think these are two sides that will be going neck and neck at the bottom end of the table. They're going to sort of be fighting to sort of get one up on each other, two newly promoted sides who did, like I said, very, very well in the league below last year. You do want to sort of get your bragging rights against those opposition when you do face them in the league above. So I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw, sort of nullifying each other out at points in the match, but both scoring a goal. So I'm going to go with 1-1. Right, let's move on to Fleetwood against Plymouth Argyle. Fleetwood Town, we spoke about them in the last game. A little bit disappointing, you'd say, really, even though they were away from home. Not an easy atmosphere, I imagine, at Port Vale, like I've already mentioned. I'm not going to repeat myself, but nothing to take away from the fact that it's a very disappointing result. And I thought that they did have the players to not just have a good game in their opening game of the season. I thought they were going to be absolutely fine when it comes to maybe putting a charge in for a surprise package. I know Shrewsbury were my official surprise package of the campaign, but I thought Fleetwood, Scott Brown, you don't want to lose the first game of the season. He's done that. You don't want to have a bad first season as manager. Of course, he hasn't done that just yet, but it's not gone the way that he would have wanted to after just the first 90 minutes of the 2022-23 season, of course, and his first managerial chance as a gaffer. So let's see what happens here, but it's not a great start for him, and I thought they'd be better than that. Some of the players that they brought in, I look at Vale from Shrewsbury, he does certainly excite me. I look at, Wiredu as well, who they brought in. These are really, really good players, and I thought maybe it does take a little time to gel. That could be a possibility. I just still feel as though they have got a good squad there. They probably will still go on, I think, and be fine, but it's not an ideal start. As for Plymouth, it was certainly an ideal start. They beat Barnsley by 1-0. We've spoken about that game when looking at it from a Barnsley perspective, but from a Plymouth perspective, that's a really, really good result. Home game, first game, it's just exactly what you would have wanted to see there from Plymouth fan. And also, we know Barnsley will be up there this year. Plymouth will be hoping to be up there as well. They were certainly surprising quite a few people last year, just missing out on the playoffs, of course, but that doesn't take anything away from the fact as though that's a brilliant result. And I mean, that could be a playoff 6-pointer come the end of the season, that Plymouth have come out on top very, very early on in the season. Looking at the odds for this game, 11-5, the expected chance of winning is 31%. So Fleetwood, they aren't favourites in this one. 15% a chance of winning specifically for that side when the odds are like that. As for Plymouth, they're 23-20. The expected chance of winning is 47%. But this team actually wins 64% of matches with these odds. So Plymouth, they got better odds on face value. And also with specific odds, Plymouth are also bettering Fleetwood as well. So I am going to go with a Plymouth win. I know I bang on about home advantage. I just think that Plymouth squad, it's going to have confidence after the opening game. It's going to have, I think, a lot of travelling fans as well, hoping to go up to Fleetwood and certainly make it a difficult atmosphere for both sides. They got a brilliant set of fans, and I also think as well the quality of those sides is edging towards Plymouth heavily. So I'm going to go with a 2-1 win to Plymouth in this match. But don't sleep on Fleetwood, as previously mentioned. It's only one game, and they have got quality, but I just believe Plymouth, they've got enough to win that 2-1. Right, and let's move on to the next one. Burton Albion against the Bristol Rovers. Just to make sure we're not moving on to the other page. No, we're not. So we should be fine. 6th of... What month are we in now? August. God, we're into the month... I keep pressing the wrong button now. This is not going well. Come on. Play the game. Play the game. We're on a roll. Right, Burton Albion against Bristol Rovers. Two sides who started the season in quite disappointing fashion, you'd say. 3-0 defeat for Burton away from home at Adams Park, of course, Wycombe Wanderers ground. You look at Bristol Rovers, 2-1 defeat against Forest Green Rovers, of course, who's got promoted with them up into this division for this season. Like I said, two sides not really coming into this game with a whole lot of confidence, and not much you can take really from that opening campaign, or opening game of the season, it should be said. Look, I still believe Burton are going to be okay. I still believe Bristol Rovers are going to be okay. Two sides that a lot of people thought would be... I think, to be honest, Burton fans, I think, should be a little bit more scared. And I'll sort of give a few reasons why. I don't think that squad has been improved enough. I predicted them to stay in the league. But even after one game, I spoke to a few Wycombe fans. Burton were battered in that game. They did not look like a good side whatsoever. Now, Wycombe play a very different style of play anyway, so it's quite difficult to look at an opposition and go, are they really, as bad as it maybe look when it looks at the scoreline? The way that Wycombe play, they're very direct. They don't sort of have too much of the ball. But Burton, from what I've spoken to a few people, they should be a little bit worried with that first result. And losing 3-0, that's not the morale going into the dressing room, going into the training ground, going into the next game of the season. As for Bristol Rovers, I thought they'd be... I think I put them higher than Burton in my predictions. I think Bristol Rovers will still be okay. I think Joe Barton's got quite a lot of ambition with where he wants to take that football club. I think he's also got some really exciting players that he brought in during the summer. Losing to Forest Green, look, ideal at all. At home as well, it's not ideal. And now going into an away game with a defeat on the back, and also, so close to each other, it's frustrating. Looking at the odds, Burton 31-20. The expected chance of winning is 39%. This team actually wins 33% of matches. As for Bristol Rovers, they're 9-5. The expected chance of winning is 36%, but this team actually wins 50% of those games. So it is actually just Burton edging it. Maybe that is that home advantage playing quite a big factor. But Bristol Rovers, with its specific odds, they do win 50-50 when it comes to those, those specific. So I don't know, it's a difficult one. Probably the tightest game that the odds are sort of suggesting here, and probably the tightest game I'm going to have to predict. I am going to go with the win. And I'm going to go with a 1-0 Bristol Rovers win. I could get it horribly, horribly wrong. But I am going to go with a 1-0 Bristol Rovers win. I think as though that squad will be itching to get back to showing a lot of League One fans they're not going to be a walkover like they were 2 seasons ago when they got relegated. They were a very poor side back then. They don't want to be known as a side that did it again this year. Burton, they're in trouble. I know it's only one game, and I'm speaking as though we're nearly on the final game of the season. Looking at that opening game, and sometimes it's the best time to sort of assess a squad at face value. What can I see? They're worrying me a little bit. They really, really are. And like I keep reiterating, it's crazy I'm saying that with only 90 minutes of football has been played, but they didn't look great. They didn't look great whatsoever. They could be, similar to Bristol Rovers, they could be sort of straight back at it, proving people wrong. We're not going to be a side that gets battered 3-0. And of course, Wycombe are a good side as well, so you've got to respect that. But I don't know, it's interesting. Right, let's move on to the next one then. Peterborough against Morecambe. Of course, Peterborough, the home side, beat Cheltenham on the first game of the season by 3-2. As for Morecambe, they drew 0-0 at home to Shrewsbury. So, neither side losing. A lot of Morecambe fans as well weren't happy with me thinking that they were going to come at bottom of the league. You can see here proof, not that you need proof, but just to show you on a visual, visually, Peterborough 3-2 against Cheltenham Town. As for Morecambe, a home draw to Shrewsbury. Looking at the odds, 65% chance for Peterborough, 17% chance for Morecambe, 11-20 for Peterborough. Heavy favourites in this game. As for Morecambe, they're 19-4. So heavy Peterborough favourites. You probably would expect that. That's a newly promoted side, newly relegated side, who are coming down from the Championship, hoping to get promoted straight back into the league above. So yeah, I probably would expect the odds to be how they are when we look at the specific odds. 58% chance of winning for Peterborough, 10% for Morecambe. I mean, you'd say it's quite a good point for Morecambe. They do still worry me, to be honest. I know a lot of people were saying how good a point that is at home to Shrewsbury, who I did say I think have made some really good signings, so I still stick by that. And some of the additions they've made, were really exciting. They are still my surprise package of the season. I think some of the players they could brought in, if they gel and if they sort of work together and the patterns of play sort of sort themselves out, quite early on, they could go on and be a real surprise for a lot of teams. So drawing against them isn't bad, really, for Morecambe, but they're very reliant on one man, and I think that's quite an easy way of looking at a 0-0 draw. If Cole Stockton doesn't score or doesn't create enough, or I guess it isn't. I guess it does come down to if he doesn't score, where are those goals coming from? Where's the threat? Because, like I say, they draw 0-0 to Shrewsbury. It's not a bad result, but Cole Stockton didn't score. Morecambe didn't score. I'm not saying Cole Stockton's going to score every goal that Morecambe score this season. He won't score every. I imagine other Morecambe players will be hitting the back of the net. But in the big moments, when it matters, when you're not making many chances, somebody that can just basically either create a chance out of nothing or maybe slot away a chance that maybe it has very low XG or one that you don't expect somebody to score, that's someone like the Cole Stockton is able to do. But when he doesn't, you could be in deep trouble. So, look, I'm not going to be too harsh on Morecambe. I think I've been harsh enough putting them bottom of the league, but I am going to predict a defeat, so I'm being a little bit more harsh. I think Peterborough, they got enough to get through the game. But I want to go 3-0. 3-0 to Peterborough. I think they're going to be in a lot of shape. Clark Harris is already scoring goals. He's already a threat. He was a threat when last time he was in League One. I expect him to do the same again this year. So, yeah, 3-0 for Peterborough. I think it's going to be a comfortable home and win for them. Right then, Accrington Stanley. They travel to Shrewsbury Town. Like I said, just spoken about. I think they're going to be my surprise package. They brought some really exciting new players into that side. Didn't get the win on the opening game, but they're home now against Accrington. Let's see what they're all about. Of course, for Accrington, their first game ended as a draw. A good draw at home to Charlton, you'd say. Some late drama, a very, very late equalising goal. But a very, very important point, you'd say, against the Charlton side, who I do believe still will be up there this year. The players that they've brought in, I think Accrington did a really good job. So a 0-0 draw for Shrewsbury, a 0-0 draw for Accrington. Now back at Shrewsbury. Let's see what happens. Look. The odds, 44% chance of winning for Shrewsbury, 36 with those specific odds. As for Accrington, you're looking at a 31% chance, and you're looking at a 41 specific odd chance. So ultimately, Shrewsbury, they are the favourites. Actually, Accrington do better with the odds. So again, very, very tight game, and I expect it to be a tight game. Even though I think Shrewsbury could maybe be pushing up, maybe you're looking at around 10th or above. Maybe that could be going a little bit too far. But you look at where they've been the previous few years, a top half finish I think would be a really, really good season. I think as though they probably will be in and around where Accrington have been. So I do expect a tight game. These are banana skin sides. I'd say particularly Accrington. I said how they are such a difficult side for teams like the top six. You look at teams like Charlton, who you expect to be in that promotion race. Hopefully, once again this year. It wasn't last year, but before the season before that, they just missed out. I think they finished 7th in the end, didn't they? So they're going to be hoping to be in and around that position this time around. And they were a banana skin. They did make it quite difficult for them. They enabled Charlton to drop points and also scored a very late goal when the game thought to be completely sort of dead and buried. So look. Two sides, I think, going to be quite close to each other in the table. That'll be the aspiration for Shrewsbury, I'm sure. Accrington will be hoping to push on maybe even higher than they normally do. Around 12th is where they were. I think they were exactly 12th last year. I'm going to go with a draw in this one. I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw. 2-2 draw in this match. Of course, Shrewsbury was 0-0 last time. Accrington was 2-2. Accrington are going to go on back-to-back 2-2 draws. That's what I'm going to go with there. I do worry a little bit where the goals come from for Accrington now. Colby Bishop has gone, but they did score 2, so that's interesting. Bit of a contradiction there with that. But clearly they have got other ways of scoring, which is very, very important. But you do lose that number 9 of Colby Bishop's standard. Right, and let's have a little look at the next one. Those 3. We'll come back to Oxford against Cambridge United. We've done Peterborough. We've done that. Let's go to Bolton, because Bolton are hosting Wycombe. Wycombe, of course, who won their first game of the season against a Burton side who, as I've already said, didn't look brilliant. I look at Ipswich against Bolton, a corker of an opening game of the season. 1-1 it finished. Ipswich, the second half, we spoke about it in the roundup. Another roundup, of course, will be happening on Sunday. Looking at these games, Bolton, I think they hung on a little bit in that second half. I think Ipswich felt as though they really could have, I think, made the most of opportunities they did have in that second half. Fine margins is something we speak a lot about in football. I think as though those fine margins had gone another way, Bolton probably would be coming out with a defeat on the opening game of the season, and Ipswich maybe could be looking at a win. Even so, Bolton, they did do very well defensively. They did hold on, and fine margins, it swayed towards Bolton, you'd say, in that second half. First half, sort of opening few moments of the game, opening few minutes, I guess, of the game. They 1-0 up. Morley scored the goal, and then they equalised. Ipswich pretty much quite soon after that. Second half, though, it was all Ipswich. But Bolton, like I said, you can talk about fine margins, you can talk about how Ipswich should have won the game. They didn't, and Bolton, they did sort of hang in there. So, fair play to them. You look at Wycombe, like I said, they won comfortably against Burton by 3-0. I got a lot of stick from Wycombe fans as well, saying how I don't think they're going to be in that top 6, as they seem to always be in recent years when they're in Sky Bet League One. Let's wait and see, but it is certainly a very, very good win. And once again, we speak about how Wycombe find a way. The difficult moments in seasons, I mean, even when people don't think they're going to be in and around the top 6, like myself, they prove us wrong. They haven't got there yet, obviously, but they're top of the league and they've had a very comfortable first game of the season. So let's see what happens. When we look at the odds, Bolton 69-50. The expected chance of winning is 42%. This team actually wins 38% of the matches with those odds. Wycombe are 2-1. The expected chance of winning is 33%. The team actually wins 38% of matches. So to be honest, when both of the odds are like they are, both teams win exactly the same percent of their games. 38 for both of them. But it does see Bolton as favourites. Home advantage, I think, is a massive part of that. Wycombe, they find a way. They do. And when people don't predict them to do well, they find a different way of annoying and frustrating and winning matches and getting difficult results for the opposition. So I am going to go with a Bolton and Wycombe draw. I am going to go with that. And that's only because I'm wary of Wycombe. I'm wary of Wycombe, what they can do, what they've done in previous years. I'm wary of what they're able to do. So I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw in this one. Bolton, both sides could win that game easily. And that sounds like a silly thing to say. But because Wycombe, even though they aren't the favourites, they're such a great backs against the wall side. Bolton, I do believe Bolton will play the better football. They have the better possession. They'll probably play, and if it's a high-scoring game, I expect as though if it's not a draw, of course, they probably will beat them with quite a few goals because they have got that ability to play and score a lot of goals. But if it's a low, tight game, which is exactly what Wycombe would want it to be, I do expect a 1-1 or even a 0-0 or one goal either way because Wycombe are going to try and, I think, slow the game down, slow the pace down, not allow Bolton to get any sort of rhythm. If they do that and Bolton maybe don't get any sort of rhythm or momentum during the match, it's going to be such a slog for them. And Wycombe will love that because Wycombe love slogs. They absolutely do. They love grinding out games when, it's frustrating the opposition. It's what they're born to do. Gareth Ainsworth loves doing it and they're very successful in doing it. So let's see. But I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw between those two sides. So next then we go to MK Dons, who host Sheffield Wednesday. Two sides who weren't able to get 3 points in the opening weekend. They were defeated by Cambridge MK Dons by 1-0. And for Sheffield Wednesday, we spoke about their thrilling game against Pompey, which ended 3-3 at Hillsborough. Red card in there as well. Two sides who were in the League One playoffs last year. They're going head-to-head in the second game of the season. Looking at the odds, MK Dons are 2-1, 33% chance of winning, 31% with those odds for them specifically. As for Sheffield Wednesday, 29-20, expected chance of winning is 41%, but this team actually wins 33% of their games. So very, very tight, and I expect it to be quite a tight game to predict because Sheffield Wednesday, they expect a lot of people. I also think they're going to be up there this season. I predict them to win the league. They've got exceptionally good players. However, one weakness I think we saw against Pompey, the wide men, the wing backs, got exposed too many times on the width. If you play wide, you play high and wide, I think they're going to cause Sheffield Wednesday a lot of problems. However, because it was so evident, Sheffield Wednesday, I expect, and Darren Moore, they would have improved on that. They would have improved on that. Are they going to be completely fixing that in a week? You probably have to say no. But if you are highlighting an area that you probably would identify as a problem for Sheffield Wednesday off the back of that game against Portsmouth, the wing-backs, Marvin Johnson on one side. I've completely forgotten the name of the other lad. On the other side, I know it does change every now and again. Both those wing-backs do. But either way, you can expose them, and you can expose them. They're very talented footballers. I think Marvin Johnson going forward is brilliant. The other lad on the other side, I'm going to get rinsed for not remembering his name. On the right-hand side, he also is very, very good going forward. I can see him. I can literally visualise him doing what he does very, very well, and that's bombing down that right-hand side. I can't remember his name, though. Either way, though, that is probably where I'd say they're going to be quite weak. But like I say, because it's so easy to identify, because that was such a big problem against the game, with the game against Pompey, you probably would expect Darren Moore to have looked at that over the past week. As for MK Dons, getting back to winning ways will be exactly the idea. Liam Manning, we knew last year, was somebody who could play a brilliant game, a brilliant attractive style of play, but also he was so desperate to win every match that he managed as MK Dons manager. You'd expect that from most managers, but I think Liam Manning did that very, very well. Surprised a lot of people. Third in the league, like I say, a very attractive style of football. A lot of new faces. Does it take a while for them to gel? That probably will be something that MK Dons fans will be saying. I completely agree. I think 13 players have come through the door. Might be 11 actually, but even so, double figures of new players coming in. That's not always easy, and that'll be something that, again, Liam Manning will have to do really, really well. And, it's not really the time to, I think, panic, but gelling is going to have to happen fairly quickly, because we knew, looking at last year, sides that are up there come the end of the season, they start strong. They don't drop too many points in the early few games. So it's not going to be one of those where you can sort of hold off a little bit and wait for them to gel. It probably will be a long-term vision, a long-term aim, and take quite a long time before they play at their best together. But they need to start getting results together, because that's going to be something that, come maybe the end of the season, you look back and you go, if only they gel a little bit quicker. I know they did have to invest because Scott Twine, Harry Dunn left the club and some new young players have had to come in. It's going to be interesting. So Liam Manning has got a job on his hands, but if you look at what he did last year, I think he certainly can succeed with it. I am going to go with a Sheffield Wednesday and MK Dons draw. I'm sitting on the fence once more. I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw. Both sides like to play very attacking. They can be exposed at the back quite a lot, but going forward, they're really, really good side. I expect a high-scoring draw here, 2-2. Yeah, I'm going to go the 2-2 draw against MK Dons and Sheffield Wednesday. Intrigued to see it. But Sheffield Wednesday fans, MK Dons fans, in the comments down below, let me know once again, because I'm intrigued with that one. A lot of Sheffield Wednesday fans will probably fancy themselves, especially when you look at a side like MK Dons, who did, like I say, lose their first game of the season. But I just feel as though they're going to learn a lot from that first game. Home as well. Let's see. So, Oxford United against Cambridge United. Two sides who had very contrasting first games of the season. Oxford defeated by Derby by 1-0. For Cambridge United, it was a 1-0 victory at home to MK Dons. We'll start off looking at Oxford, because that first game of the season, I was there, I watched it. It was not an easy match. Derby County, away from home, Pride Park, brilliant atmosphere, 30,000 plus fans there. It was a very, very difficult game, and we expected it to be. The quality that Derby have got, like I said, I did a dedicated match reaction and match day experience for that game. You can check it out on the channel now. You can watch that after this. Very, very tough game, and the way we had to play did, I think, make it really quite a struggle going forward. I do expect something completely in this one. And that is down to the opposition that we're playing. We're not sleeping on Cambridge United. That's not what I mean. Last season, Cambridge proved that you can't sleep on them. However, they're not Derby County in the sense that we haven't got players compact. We haven't got to play with our wingers being so narrow, try and sort of, I guess, suffocate the likes of, not literally, Hourihan and Max Bird in a footballing sense, and not allow them to have the room they've got. Even though Hourihan did score, clearly, we were tactically for 80 minutes spot on, but the 1 minute, really, we didn't really look as concentrated as we should be, and as we were for the majority of the match. It absolutely cost us. But like I say, we won't really have to play that against Cambridge United, not because they haven't got good players, they have. They won't be like Derby, and they won't be playing like Derby either. Looking at Oxford and how they're going to approach this one, I expect much wider. I expect us to play much wider with our wingers, with our fullbacks. We haven't got to play squeezed in. The majority of the game against Derby and Oxford was played very, very centrally. I guess the majority of the game wasn't necessarily always played in that sense. I mean, the average positions of Oxford were played quite centrally. The average game, I mean, Mendes-Lang loved going down that left-hand side, or right-hand side. Is left-hand side? No, it was right-hand side. So, he had the ability to stretch the play. That's exactly what they wanted to do. But expect to be a much wider game from Oxford, because it did struggle going forward. We look at Matty Taylor. I think he really did struggle with a game like that against Derby. He's not getting the service from the wide players. Really quite struggle. He hasn't really got the legs to create his own chances. He'll still score goals. He'll still be a finisher, but he isn't able to sort of play. I mean, he isn't the tallest either, so he can't really win a header, turn on goal and hit an absolute banger. I mean, he probably can hit the banger, but chesting it down or winning the header and spinning and turning, it's not something that Matty Taylor's about anymore. He'll still score you, 15 plus goals if you give him the opportunities, but you've got to give him those opportunities. So I expect us to play with much wider wide men. Sounds silly, but it's true. We're not going to have to play as for Cambridge, they're going to come in with a lot of confidence, beating MK Dons, an MK Dons side who, like I said, in the last game we looked at, it's not going to be a fully gelled MK Dons side. It won't be the best MK Dons side we see this year. They were third in the league last year, and you can't argue with that. Looking at the odds, it is Oxford United heavy, 7-10 when you look at the odds, 59% chance of winning, 92% looking at Oxford specifically. For Cambridge United, it's 17-4, 19%, 1% actually with those specific odds and specific sides. So Oxford United are favourites. I'd say heavy favourites actually, just looking at the odds, but also looking at it from a specific perspective. I'm going to back Oxford here. A side, of course, the side that I support, and I hope we can get back to winning ways, or get off to a winning way, I should say. We did, of course, lose that first game of the season. As for Cambridge, though, they're going to come in with a lot of confidence. But I'm going to go with Oxford winning this one 2-0. Comfortable 2-0. I'm not sleeping on Cambridge. I'm not disregarding Cambridge as a side, because, like I say, they can be really dangerous. But I do feel as though Oxford, they got enough to beat Cambridge 2-0. Right then, Charlton against Derby. That's where we're going to go next. Derby, we spoke about them. They're a good side. They got some very, very good players. And they're also a side that I think are only going to get better. They're signing a new player as well. I believe Dobbins has just come through the door. And they're also going to become a better side week in, week out, because they're going to be playing week in, week out. And they're going to be able to gel more and more by playing more and more. Of course, though, it doesn't guarantee that they're going to win every single game, because Derby, I think, will come up against difficult obstacles during the season. But looking at the way they played against Oxford at home, they did look like a real outfit. We did try and stop them and try and nullify them at different points in the game, but we couldn't do it in the end. And one, like I said, silly moment from Oxford cost us. And that's what the good sides do. That's what the good players do. You give them one opportunity, you will make a mistake, and they're going to absolutely pounce on that. And Derby County did just that. And now going to the Valley, Charlton, who I expected to be up there this year. They still easily could be. They drew, of course, against Accrington in the first game of the season. Heartbreak in the final moments to draw that one. For Derby, like I already say, they're going to bring confidence. There's going to be bringing, I think, a large away following with the amazing fan base and large fan base that they've got as well. It is Garner's first game as manager at the Valley, so he's going to be really quite desperate to get off to winning starts as the manager of Charlton at home. Looking at the odds, 7-4, the expected chance of winning is 36%, but this team actually wins 39% of matches. Derby is 163 to 100, quite a large odd there. The expected chance of winning is 38%, but this team actually wins 29% of matches. So actually, it's Charlton who aren't favourites at face value, but looking at the specific odds, actually Charlton are doing fairly well. This is a really tough one to call. Who do I think are who's got the better squad? Probably Derby. Who played the best on the opening game of the season? Probably Derby. Who got the better result in the opening game of the season? Derby. Who's playing at home? Who has a manager who really, really wants to get off to a winning start at home? Charlton. I'm going to go the Charlton. I don't know. It's so tough. I'm going to go the draw. It's going to be so tight. I'm going to go with 1-1. I predicted a lot of draws in this game. I'm going to go with 1-1. I think home advantage. I keep banging on about it, but because there's proof to it. I'm going to go with 1-1, but of course, Derby, they've got some amazing individuals. If Derby can play where they ultimately how they want to play, and that's have a majority of the ball, get out to Mendes Land, get out to the wingers. Buck Huser can play off the left, and of course, Buck Huser on the right, or they can switch, they get interchange. They do swap over quite regularly, as we saw against Oxford. Then Derby, obviously, are going to be a real outfit once more. But Charlton, at home, they're going to want to prove to the fans that, again, last season was really, really poor, and this year they're a changed side. They drew their first game. What a statement that would be to beat Derby in the second game at home. That would be a brilliant start to home life and a brilliant kickstart for them. It could be a kickstart that takes them to the next level sort of through the season. So I'm going to go with a Charlton draw against Derby, 1-1. But I know I'm sitting on the fence, and I can only apologise. But that's just how I feel. Just how I feel. You can't help how you feel. That's what they say, isn't it? So I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. Right then, finally, the final game, the 12th game we're going to be looking at here. Forest Green Rovers against Ipswich Town. Forest Green Rovers beat Bristol Rovers on the first game of the season by 2-1. As for Ipswich, they drew at home to Bolton, but they feel as though they could be winning that game against Bolton if they'd taken those chances in the second half. They weren't able to, and Bolton defended well. Fine margins. That was the words of Kieran McKenna after the game. Fine margins cost them. You look at Forest Green Rovers, like I say, a lot of people, including myself, didn't really think they're going to be able to get through Bristol Rovers. We knew they got quality. They won the league last year, played a brilliant style of play, but a lot of change. A lot of key players leaving. Their manager, of course, Edwards leaving the football club. How are they going to deal with it? How are they going to manage going into this season? I predict them to get relegated, I believe. I think that was my prediction. But a first game of the season that they'll be very, very happy with. As for Ipswich, brilliant side, some brilliant players, and like I say, the second half they played some really good football. They weren't able to take those chances, and that was something that Kieran McKenna will be looking at. Can we take those chances, and where would we be if we did take those chances? I do look at the odds. Forest Green are 14-5, so that's a 26% chance of winning. As for Ipswich, they're 1-1, so completely evens. Expected chance of winning is 50%. 14% chance of winning with a specific odds for Forest Green, and 54% for specific odds to Ipswich. So, Ipswich, they are favourites, exactly what I expect. And Ipswich, of course, away from home in this one. I am going to go with an Ipswich win. It won't be as comfortable as a lot of people will say. I think I've seen some predictions already. People are saying that Ipswich is going to absolutely batter Forest Green. I don't think it's going to be like that. But I do think Ipswich will win the game. I'm going to go with a 3-1 win, which isn't a battering, but I still think Ipswich will be comfortable. I'm seeing some people say it's going to be 4 or 5-0. Look, let's not go over the board here. Ipswich drew the first game of the season, didn't take the chances in the second half. So, let's just sort of wait and see. But I still think they're going to be able to score 3 goals. They might concede 1. I still think they're going to have enough to win the game. I'm going to go 3-1 to Ipswich. That should be absolutely all games. Let me know your predictions in the comments down below. All the predictions, or maybe just your side. I'm intrigued. I'm replying and responding to all of them as per usual. Please leave a like and subscribe. Lots of content. The roundup, of course, coming out on Sunday. My match reaction for Cambridge United against Oxford on the Saturday. That's for Oxford United fans or Cambridge fans. You can just hear me either be very happy about Oxford or maybe a little bit sad. Hopefully it is not the latter and we come away with 3 points. Let's wait and see. In the comments down below, like I've already said, give me your thoughts. I've been Jack. This has been the Unfan Podcast. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you all very, very soon. Take care.